Hey, what's up guys, Ollie here. So I wanted to do a video comparing the iPhone XR and the iPhone XS. I have both of them here, basically telling you what's the same, what's the difference, and maybe help you decide which one you should choose over the other. So we'll get started with what's the same. Both of the phones have the same A12 Bionic processor. That's basically Apple's latest generation chip that powers both of the phones. So when it comes to performance, you're really not missing out on much between both of the phones because they're using the same processor. Because the processors are so powerful and they've been compared with other sort of powerful competitive devices from other manufacturers, you know, the iPhone XR and the iPhone XS should both last quite a few years. You know, Apple should be supporting them for around maybe 4 to 5 years, which is good to know. You also get the same main camera in both of the phones, so you aren't going to be missing out on picture quality, camera quality when choosing between either of the devices. And they both have wireless charging, which is very useful. You know, being able to just put your phone on a wireless charger, no having to fumble around with cables, is pretty good. Now, when it comes to what's different, with the iPhone XR, you do get a variety of different colors, which, if that's your sort of thing, brilliant, because you know you can choose like red, yellow, blue, all these different colors. If you're into having a brightly colored phone, then the iPhone XR might be a good choice for you. I've always preferred understated colors, so I like the black that the iPhone XR comes in. Around the edge of the phone, there isn't stainless steel, it's aluminium, and I actually like the aluminium on the iPhone XR. I actually think I like it more than the stainless steel on the iPhone XS. Mainly because the stainless steel on the iPhone XS can scratch up and it can get a lot of fingerprints and things like that. I think the aluminium will actually fare better in the long run. There's also no 3D touch. For some odd reason, Apple haven't included 3D touch on the iPhone XR. I think they're very sort of wishy-washy when it comes to 3D touch. They haven't even included it in any of their latest iPads as well. So I don't really know where Apple are going with 3D touch. But they've replaced 3D touch with long press now instead, and long press does the job. But if you're someone who really does depend on 3D touch, that's definitely something worth considering when it comes to choosing which device. The iPhone XR sits in between the iPhone XS and the iPhone XS Max when it comes to the size of the phone. It's a good little sort of in-between size, but if you do prefer smaller phones, then the iPhone XS may be a better choice, but I actually think the iPhone XR, the size of it, is pretty good. You also lose out on the telephoto lens, and to be honest, I don't think you're losing out on much when it comes to that. You know, on the iPhone XS, I rarely even use the telephoto lens anyway. Finally, the biggest difference, and what most people are talking about, is the screens. On the iPhone XR, you get an LCD screen, and on the iPhone XS, you get an OLED screen. The iPhone XR does have a lower resolution display. It comes in at 326 pixels per inch, which is actually the same as the iPhone 6, 7, and 8. So if you're moving from those devices, you're really not going to see much of a difference. The iPhone XS has 458 pixels per inch, so you know, you're only really going to see the difference when you have the two phones side by side. I can tell the difference when it comes to resolution compared to the iPhone XS, but in no way do I feel like I'm losing out on much going with the iPhone XR. You know, I think the display in the iPhone XR is still fantastic, and if you're someone who's going to be upgrading from an iPhone 6, from an iPhone 7, from an iPhone 8, one of those phones, you're not going to see any difference at all. Unless you really care about display technology and you really care about having an OLED display in your phone, I think the iPhone XR display is going to be good enough for most people. If the iPhone XS didn't exist and that screen didn't exist, I think I'd be more than happy with the display on the iPhone XR. Obviously, I wish Apple had put a much higher resolution display into the iPhone XR considering how much you're paying. So yeah, that's definitely something to think about. If you're very much on the fence when it comes to the displays, I'd recommend going into an Apple store, comparing the iPhone XR and the iPhone XS side by side and seeing if you see much of a difference. I personally do see a difference. I do see that the iPhone XS has a sharper display, it has a better clarity display, and I found that the display actually sits closer to the screen on the iPhone XS too. Also, the iPhone XR has a thicker bezel when compared to the iPhone XS, which is definitely noticeable when you have both phones side by side. But when it comes to using the iPhone XR day to day, I don't actually notice the bezel at all anyway. When it comes to what's better on the iPhone XR, the battery life is noticeably better. It has a bigger battery in it, and because the screen isn't higher resolution, it doesn't demand as much power. So, you know, when it comes to battery life, the iPhone XR is definitely the one to go for. The battery life on it from the last few days that I've been using it is incredible. It'll easily last a day. So yeah, if battery life is a priority, then the iPhone XR is a good one to go for. And finally, the price. You know, the iPhone XR is a good $250, £250 cheaper than the iPhone XS, and that's a good chunk of money. That's a large chunk of money, and I think that's a very much a deciding factor for most people when it comes to choosing which device they want to go for. And from speaking to the Apple reps and the Apple employees at my local Apple store, they were saying that the iPhone XR has been much more popular than the iPhone XS, mainly because of the price. People haven't even really been considering, you know, the screen or losing 3D touch or losing the telephoto lens. The iPhone XR has just been by far and away the more popular phone for them in their store. With that $250 you're saving, you could buy a pair of AirPods and you can buy a high quality case for your iPhone XR if that's what you're into. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully it helps you decide which iPhone you should go for. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter and subscribe for more.